Nationally, there are over 1.97 million Dreamers. Texas is home to 213,000 Dreamers, including 110,000 DACA recipients. Texas Dreamers have contributed $412.8 million in state and local taxes, and another $441.1 million in federal taxes. It's plain to see that Dreamers and DACA recipients have a vital role and are major contributors in our U.S. and Texas economy. On September 5th of 2017, President Trump ordered an end to DACA, the Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals program. In January of 2021, President Biden issued an executive order to direct federal agencies to preserve and fortify DACA. However, in July of 2021, a federal judge in Texas ruled that DACA is illegal and said that the Biden administration could not approve any new applications. The next step for this issue is the United States Supreme Court. With a conservative court in place, the chances are very, very slim that DACA will be approved and the program being reinstated. In this episode, we talk to 3 DACA recipients. They will share with us their thoughts and their stories and give us their perspective and what it's like to possibly be deported from the only country they know.
Welcome to the Latino Business Report. This podcast covers business, people, and issues of the day from a Latino perspective. The Latino Business Report is brought to you by TAMAC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce. TAMAC is the leading Hispanic business organization in Texas since 1975. Now for your host, J.R. Gonzalez.
And welcome to another episode of the Latino Business Report. Today, we have a full slate of people to talk to. There's actually 3 guests on the show. Let me start off with the first one. My longtime friend, Juan Carlos Serna. Juan Carlos, how are you doing today, sir?
Good evening, JR. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having us on your show.
No. Thank you for being here. Now, Juan Carlos, for in a way of introduction, I mean, we've known each other for 3 or 4 years now?
3 years and going strong, JR.
3 years going, and I've totally enjoyed our relationship. Juan Carlos, give us, you are the deputy campaign director of the American Business Immigration Coalition. What is that? What do you guys do?
That's right, JR. ABIC, for short, is a coalition that is bipartisan, located in 17 states, including Texas, Idaho, North and South Carolina, Arizona, New York, California, among others, that has 1,200 CEOs that advocate for common sense immigration solutions.
Certain advocacy group for immigration.
Correct. And we are led nationally by business leaders like Woody Hunt in Texas, the senior chairman of Hunt Companies, John Rowe, the former chairman of Exelon Corporation, one of the largest electricity utility companies in the world, and also some of the biggest Republican donors like Mike Fernandez, the chairman of MBF Healthcare Partners.
And I can only assume right now one of the top issues you guys are dealing with is DACA and the fact that the clock is ticking and decisions are going to be made by the Supreme Court.
That's right, JR. ABIC got started principally because of DACA. DACA was ending in 2017 because President Trump at the time decided that DACA was illegal, executive overreach, and decided to end the program, which meant that DACA was going to end and Congress needed to find a permanent solution. Right now, DACA is in the courts. It's being litigated. There are lawsuits against DACA by states like Texas that are arguing that DACA is a drain on Texas's resources and taxpayers' money. And we're arguing that DACA actually is a net benefit to our economy, especially because we're dealing with 204,000 Dreamers in the state of Texas that are contributing to our communities and our economy and are a vital part of our country.
Okay. God, you said in the program. Well, what started the program, or how long has the program been in existence?
DACA was actually first initiated by undocumented students back before 2010. Students throughout the country were growing up in the United States. They were going to school. Many were going to college without authorization, not knowing if they were going to be able to use their education and put it to use. But they didn't want to give up on their dreams. So a dreamer in 2001 named Teresa Wong actually contacted her senator, Dick Durbin from Illinois, and said, hey, this is my situation. I need help to become a citizen. So Senator Durbin was very inspired by her and decided to create the DREAM Act and name Teresa a dreamer, or somebody who is in the pursuit of the American dream and a path to citizenship. So that's how we got started. And that's how DACA was first initiated, because Dreamers asked President Obama in 2010 and 2011 to do something about our issue. So because Congress failed to pass immigration reform, President Obama was forced to create the DACA program, which is a temporary measure that protects us from deportation.
By executive order. It was executive order, correct?
Order allows us to work for 2 years and gives us the ability to at least have a shot at the American dream.
When you say gives us a shot, so Juan Carlos, you're a dreamer yourself, correct?
That's right, Jared. I'm a dreamer.
Where are you from, and how did you come to this country?
I came to the U.S. with my family from San Luis Potosí, Mexico. It's right south of Monterrey, north of Mexico City. And I came when I was 7 years old because my parents wanted a better future for us. Both my parents are actually now legal permanent residents. Up to 2 months ago, they actually got their green cards through my youngest brother, who is a U.S. citizen. My dad's an electrician, and my mother is a factory worker. And thanks to them, they brought me to this country. They gave me the chance to study here. I was able to get a full scholarship to go to Yale University. I was still undocumented, but I didn't want to give up on my dreams of having an education or career because I was hopeful that Congress and the president would do something about our situation. And it wasn't until 2012, when DACA was created, that I was finally able to pursue my dreams of becoming a kindergarten teacher right after I graduated from Yale.
Okay, you said Yale, right?
That's right. I went to Yale.
Not bad, not bad. Now, as a dreamer, I mean, you went to Yale, you're here, you're a DACA recipient. I mean, you had to earn your way into Yale. I mean, you didn't have any affirmative action programs or anything like that. I mean, you had to have the grades, the discipline, and the skills and apply like everybody else. And in a competitive market, you got into Yale and graduated from there. Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. I definitely had to work my ass off and do the very best I could, become a salutatorian of my high school, and in the process, get accepted by UT and decide, hey, because Texas doesn't have as friendly in-state tuition policies or financial aid, why not go to a private school like Yale and get a full ride?
Wow. Well, Juan Carlos, I know that we have two other guests that we're going to have on the podcast today. And since you invited them, I'll give you the pleasure of introducing them.
Thank you so much, JR. I'm pleased to introduce two remarkable young men who have inspired me through their work and their ability to persevere through tough times in the immigration world. Alberto Garcia, he's an entrepreneur and the owner of Uniformity, and Jesus Contreras, who is a paramedic from Houston, both very intelligent young men who are just pursuing the American dream. And we're so honored to have them on your show and to have them share a little bit about their stories.
Absolutely. Jesus, Alberto, welcome to the podcast. And Alberto, let's start with you. I mean, you are I think, Juan Carlos, being a little modest there, you are actually kind of a serial entrepreneur. I mean, you've been in business, your family's been in business, you own a business. Tell us about your business and how you came to the U.S. and where you're from.
Okay, so I'll just start off real quick on how I came to the U.S. So when I was 6 years old, my mother, she's a single mother. She brought me and my siblings over. We're from Zacatecas, and she brought us over. And we had super humble beginnings. I mean, we were living in an apartment with like eight other guys, and it was just like us four in a single room. So when she signed me up for
let's
for
back
school.
Up. How many people in a single room?
It was there was 8 people in a 2-bedroom apartment, and we had one of the rooms. Wow. It was my brother, my younger brother, my older sister, my mom, and myself, in a single room. And that's how we kind of grew up. That's how I kind of grew up in elementary school. Kind of like, just staying in one room, all of us. Because again, she's a single mother coming to a whole new country. She doesn't know the language. She doesn't know anybody. So we reached out to she knew some friends out here. So we're staying with them. But that's how we start. I was in elementary school. So this is how I started, why I started Uniformity. So when I first registered to...
and Uniformity is your business right now?
Uniformity is my business right now. Okay. This is kind of how the idea got planted. So when I first signed up to run an academy, it was an elementary school. My principal, we didn't have money for like uniforms. So my principal, what he did, he like took me to Sears and he was like, okay, grab everything you need, and, pick out your uniforms for school. Because it was a very strict school. And I think it was like an academy, so we had to wear uniforms. So from there, I grew up with that in the back of my mind. And through my whole life, I played soccer. So with soccer, I was always like a captain. So I was always really motivated and driven because I was a man of my family, like the man of the house. So I was like, all right, I have to do something with my life. I can't just, not have this opportunity and not take advantage of it. So I grew up, in high school, I was in National Honor Society. I was always doing good in school. And then I got I went to UNT, so I got a full ride to UNT. I wanted to go to SMU, but they didn't give me a full ride. But I went to UNT, and it was awesome. I graduated with a degree in commercial real estate, and throughout college, I was working. Throughout high school, my sophomore year of high school, and through college, I was working with our other business, which is a scale agency. And that's a staffing business. So I grew up serving, bartending, being a houseman for like when you do housekeeping, you have a houseman, he picks up the linens and all that. So I grew up working in that through college and high school. And after I graduated college, I have also a mentor. His name is Jorge Baldor. He was like, hey, I was ready to get a job in the corporate world. But he was like, hey, you should start your own business. And in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I always did want to be, because the family, Askel is a family business. So that's like all of our business. I was like, I do want to start my own business. And so I came up with, we went to go visit a couple uniform stores and I was like, oh, this is cool. And so I formed my business plan. And then, May 2019, 3 years ago. It just happened, the 3-year anniversary. I started it, and then that's what I've been doing ever since then. And
And how old were you? How old were you when you started your first business, or your own business?
My own business. I was 23. Yeah, I was 23.
23. Mm-hmm. All right. How's the business going?
It's good. Yeah, like the first I would say the first 2 years it was so hard. I didn't know. Like I honestly, if anybody wants to start a business, I kind of started off doing a whole bunch of things that I shouldn't have. But if you want to start a business, I would definitely sit down with yourself and really go over your business plan and what you actually need, and don't go do things. Don't go buy stuff and just do all these random things. But you got to learn from your mistakes. So
sure.
I mean, it was worth it, but first 2 years were rough.
I know what you mean. I started my first business at 26, and yes, we make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
So good. Our next guest, we have Jesus. Jesus, I did a little background on you, and I saw your smiling face in People magazine, People in Espanol. You're kind of famous there. You're a paramedic, I understand?
I guess so. Not really. Not anymore. I try to keep my head low and just work. But JR,
you're not a paramedic anymore? Or you're not famous anymore?
Not famous.
Okay. Well, before we get into it, I mean, just tell me a little bit about those 15 minutes of fame that you had and how that came about.
Yeah, JR. So my name is Jesus Contreras. I've been a paramedic since 2015, I believe, 2015, 2016. Well, in my line of work, we deal with emergencies and we deal with a lot of 911 calls. Well, here in Houston, we were unfortunate to have Hurricane Harvey hit us. And it hit us pretty bad to the point where all our first responders, like myself, were working a whole week nonstop. I think I worked 7 days in total. And so there was national media from all across or international media from all across the world here in Houston, and they were doing reporting on, the flooding and the damage. And I was working, and then once those 7 days ended, I went to volunteer at my church and help with their first aid that they had out there. And then that night I got home. I hadn't had a chance to turn on the TV the entire week. And I turned on the TV, and it's President Trump at the time announcing that he's rescinding DACA.
Wow.
So I had a connection with a friend who knew that I was a DACA recipient, who knew that I was a first responder. And she let him know, hey, we have a DACA recipient, while they're saying that we're criminals, that we're just mooching off the rest of the country. I have a friend who's actually a paramedic on the front lines, helping people, who are stuck in the water, who, have medical emergencies during this tough time.
You were saving lives.
Yeah, literally at that time, it was just nonstop work, dedicated to my community, my state, this country, the city, and I was all in. And so turning that TV on and seeing all that was heartbreaking. And I knew at that point that I just had to say something about it. I just had to share my story and tell people that, look, no, I'm actually doing something productive. I'm actually helping my community. I'm actually giving back. We're actually valuable assets. And I think that's where my 15 minutes of fame came was, people saw that I was doing some sort of, community work, and that all I wanted to do was help people. And the president at the time was threatening that ability and all that work that I'd put in just to be where I was. And so, I went on to be on People Magazine, like you were saying, the Houston Chronicle, MSNBC, NBC, Fox, CNN, all the major news networks. And it was a great time to get to share my story. And now I get to help other people share their stories.
Well, it sounds like you're getting more coverage than Trump at the time.
I was getting a lot of coverage. It was so stressful.
So where are you from, and at what age did you come to this country?
Yeah. So I'm from Nuevo Laredo, Tamaulipas, Mexico. I was born in 93. My mom and dad raised me there up until the age of 6. My mom decided it was best for her and I to flee the country. My dad was involved in some stuff that wasn't the best for us. And the city and the border town were in a time of war and cartels and drug smuggling and violence. And so she thought that she could provide a better future for me here in the States. And we have family in Houston. So we took a Greyhound bus in the middle of the night and came into Houston. And she just told me, we're going to stay here for the rest of our life. And this is where you're going to, this is where you're going to live. And this is where you're going to go to school. And from there on, it's just been here in the States, just working hard.
Wow. Some amazing stories. Well, we're very fortunate. And once again, thank you. I got 3 of you, all DACA, all very successful, accomplished, educated, and definitely contributing to this society much more than some other folks. But let me just kind of get this. And Juan Carlos, in a little while, we're going to kind of get into the nuts and bolts of what's going on in Congress and what's going on with this. But can I get just from each of you just a little idea of what it was like growing up as undocumented until you became a dreamer, and just that angst, that fear, that anxiety? I mean, what did it feel like knowing that any time that you or any members of your family could possibly be deported, or you come home from school one day and, Migra was there and everybody was gone?
It was full of anxiety, JR. I can tell you one story of when I was in high school. I was part of the academic decathlon team, and I was a team captain. I helped the team win the district championship, and we were going to El Paso, Texas for the state championship. But it turns out that 2 of my teammates were undocumented, and we knew that if we went to El Paso, that we would be asked about our immigration status at the checkpoints right outside the city. So we went to our teacher and said, hey, we can't go to El Paso, Texas, because we're going to get deported. We're undocumented. So we unfortunately had to make the tough choice of dropping out of the state finals because a third of our team didn't have authorization. So that just gives you an idea of the opportunities we had to give up because we were undocumented. And I remember the first thing that I did actually when I was accepted to Yale was go to the Mexican consulate, take a day off of school to go get my Mexican passport, because once you turn 18, you can no longer use your student ID from high school to fly on an airplane. So you literally have to go get a passport from your country of origin so you can even get to where you want to go. And that is the reason why DACA truly made a change in my life, because it allowed me to get a driver's license so that I could use it to travel on an airplane to college. It allowed me to get my first legal job. Before then, I was working from dawn to dusk with my father in the electricity business, trying to wire houses and basically selling copper wire door to door in many cases. So DACA allowed me to actually pursue a different career path, different from my dad, whom I love. I love the work he does, and it provided for us. But growing up, I always loved going to school, and I always dreamed about potentially teaching, which I ended up doing as a kindergarten teacher.
Wow. Alberto, what story do you have growing up as a child and recognizing just the possibility that anytime something can happen or you or your family members could be deported?
For me, it was the same sort of experience. Like, it's always having that anxiety that you could, or like hearing your friends, especially from school, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna deport you," or "You can get deported." And then
they're just mean in school, aren't they, man?
Yeah, as a kid, you just realize, and you're like, "Dang, they're kind of right. We can't just like get deported at the time." So it was kind of like something you grow up with, and then you hear La Migra all the time, especially from friends that are just trying to like, be mean. And then later on, when you get older, well, like in high school, you see your friends getting driver's license, you see them driving. It's not that we couldn't drive, but it's just like, dang, okay, so like you need driver's license, you need to get insurance, you need to get all this stuff, but you need to have an ID to get all these things. Or even like they were getting jobs, right, in high school. And I was like, What the heck? That's so, like, I was like, that's crazy. Like, we're the same people. Like, I can relate to them, but like this little piece of paper or whatever, like,
so you didn't have that documentation, so you couldn't,
and I couldn't
get the driver's license and get a summer job and do things your friends were doing.
Right, and now people were signing up. So it was my junior year of high school. They were signing up for colleges, right? And everybody was signing up, and I didn't get DACA till like after I graduated, which is 2013. And I was like, man, well, this is not gonna. I'm gonna just probably get a job or figure this out, do something. It's just not going to be for me, education, just because I wasn't going to pay that much or whatever. But for me, then when I got DACA, I was able to, get into college, get a job, work to pay to pay whatever I had to in college. So for me, it opened up so many doors, like even flying, it opened up doors to fly that we would always drive everywhere. Everywhere we traveled, we would always drive, because we were too scared to drive because we didn't know if we were going to get deported or not. And obviously we didn't want to risk that. Right. So just opening like simple things that probably like an American just takes for granted. To me, it was like, wow, like I can't do all these things. And it's super crazy. But I mean, that's just how it is, or it was.
So once you got your DACA status, a whole new world of opportunities opened up for you.
Man, I'm still waiting for more opportunities to open. Like, I still want more, right? Once you get a little taste, you're like, I want more. But it did. It opened a lot of doors. And I mean, it was definitely a disadvantage.
Yeah. But I mean, you're very fortunate. Instead of working for somebody else, you're working for yourself. I mean, you got that entrepreneurial spirit, and you took a chance. You take a chance on yourself and building your own business. And si Dios quiere, this DACA thing will be resolved, and you can continue to grow your business and live here with your family. Jesus, any experiences that you have when you were a child?
Yeah, JR, being undocumented was tough, like it is for a lot of us. And I can't say my story is unique. I think we all share similar stories. My mom and I got here, and she went straight to work. The only work that she could get was just cleaning jobs. And so there I was going with her to dealerships at nighttime while she cleaned, and I would just hang around, lick the cars and stuff like that. And so that being young was just eye-opening, knowing that we were undocumented, that this is as far as we could take it. This is as much as we could do. And watching my mom not complain was one of the best things I ever learned, because I learned not to complain when I was faced with some tough situations. Like Juan Carlos was saying earlier, I ran into a similar situation in high school. I was part of an EMT basic program that my high school offered. I had finished all my credits to graduate it, so I joined this program. And the deal with the program is if you take the class at the end of the semester or the year, you can take your state exam if you pass, your national registry exam. Mm-hmm. Crappy part about that was that you needed to take the state exam, you needed a driver's license or a social. And I didn't have either one of those. So even though I was one of the class was 36 students, only 6 of us passed. I was one of those 6, and I couldn't test. Wow. I couldn't take my exam to get my EMT basic license. And furthermore, because I wanted to pursue paramedic school right out of high school, because it was just the logical step, less money, go to community college, do that. Well, I applied for U of H, got accepted, and then faced the hard fact that I couldn't qualify for a lot of financial aid. And my mom, bless her heart, she was all in. She would tell me, Miko, if you want to go to college, I'll pick up another job. We'll see how we can make it work. We'll try to take out loans. And I didn't want that. And so I ended up taking an athletic running scholarship to a junior college so that I could go to school and not have to pay and not have to stress out my mom with that. And I ran into another situation similar to Juan Carlos where I didn't know about El Paso and the checkpoints that they have after them.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we went on a track meet to El Paso, and I was one of 2 undocumented students on that bus. And I mean, the bus is, stickered up with the college signs on there and everything. And so I didn't know about it. But once we got into El Paso, my friend was like, hey, I think there's a checkpoint on the way back. And I was like, I don't think so. I mean, we're not across the border. But sure enough, we came back, and the guy at the checkpoint saw the bus, peeked his head in, and he asked our coach, he's like, where are you guys going? You guys coming from an athletic event? And he was like, yeah, we're just headed back to school. He's like, well, you guys are good to go unless there's anything you want to tell me. And he's like, well, actually, I have 2 undocumented students.
Wait a minute. Who said that?
Our coach. I mean,
does he not like you or what?
No. He meant well. He was just
trying to be honest with everything.
Yeah, he was trying to be honest. He didn't understand the situation. He didn't.
Okay, that coach wasn't Latino, was he?
No, he was white.
Be honest with the cops. Okay.
No. So there I am, a 19-year-old detained. They have a detainment little cell.
Oh, so they pulled you off the bus.
Yeah, they took me and my friend off the bus while the rest of our team kind of hung out, and they actually ended up leaving to go get a hotel for the night because they weren't sure how long we were going to be there. But fortunate for me and my running mate, my mom we had already submitted my application for DACA, and so had my friend. And so just the submission of the application, we faxed it over. That was enough for them to be like, okay, well, you've applied for this. You're not 100% undocumented. And so they saw that we were part of the team. They saw that we were just scared to death,
right.
And so later that night, about 5-6 hours later, we were on our way back to college, just mentally exhausted, scared to death, because at that point I'm like, am I getting deported in my running shorts and my, what is this?
In your college jersey?
In my college jersey, and so I run into some situations like that, and the only thing that let me get my paramedic certificate was the fact that, when I got approved for DACA, I was able to apply for my driver's license. And I was able to then, pursue my dream of being an EMT paramedic. So, but great. Yeah, man, we struggle. And like I said, I don't think my situation's unique. I think a lot of us share crazy stories like that.
Man, the fact that you were on an athletic scholarship and you were track runners, I mean, I would have said, Migra, catch me. Vámonos, let's go.
I'm saying, I've had this planned out in my head for a long time. If
it's hard for them to run in that bulletproof vest and the gun and everything. I mean, it just outruns the son of a gun, man.
No, I already had plan B. If I went back to Mexico, I already had a plan on, what shoes I was going to wear and how I was going to get there and what pace I was going to go at. Because, I could run.
You're going to go cross country, man. You're going to change, not change sports, change categories, go cross country.
Yeah. I was a long distance runner in high school, so I got the
so you're up to it. All right. Yeah, but you can't run across the water. I mean, it's Texas. Okay.
I love swimming too.
Hey, interesting stories, guys. Thank you for opening up and sharing that with us. But Juan Carlos, give us the status of where DACA is now. I know that there's a window coming up. I think things are happening with the Supreme Court. Give us a little briefing on that, will you?
Absolutely, JR. Like Alberto and Jesus' story show, we're in a vulnerable position and we're only 2 steps away from deportation because DACA was never meant to be a permanent program. Like you said, it's an executive order that President Obama created. Any president can take it away at any time. And in addition to that, you have to apply for DACA or reapply every 2 years, which means that you always face the risk of possibly having your DACA run out of time and not be renewed.
Or the renewal application being denied.
Exactly, or the renewal application being denied, which has happened to a couple of folks.
Now, Juan Carlos, before we get into it a little further, you said that it was an executive order and any president can take it away. Now, under President Trump administration, he actually tried to take it away, right? And then now it's tied up in the courts.
He did. President Trump tried to take it away and basically announced it out of nowhere in September, I think it was 5th of 2017, and gave DACA recipients about 3 months. He gave us 3 months to figure out what to do with DACA, and he gave Congress a mandate to pass some kind of law if we didn't want to get deported. So what ended up happening was that the state of Texas, right after President Obama announced DACA, decided to sue the administration for executive overreach. And the case actually did go to the Supreme Court. On the first time, the Supreme Court actually decided not to take up the DACA case. And then the case came up again after the Trump administration in 2020. And the Supreme Court actually said that President Trump had maliciously tried to end the program without any valid reasoning, which meant that Trump couldn't end the program right then, but he could try to end it once more by having a different argument. So this time, the DACA program for the 3rd time is going to the Supreme Court with the argument that it is unconstitutional and that no president can just create immigration law out of thin air. And that case is being heard in the 5th Circuit Court in New Orleans on July 6th. We already had a previous federal court say that DACA probably is unconstitutional and actually insisted that no new DACA applications can be accepted until some other court makes a decision about it. So what will probably happen is that the 5th Circuit Court will say that the program is illegal and it will go to the Supreme Court of the United States sometime by the end of this year or next year. And the odds, JR, are not looking in our favor.
Come on. Right? It's a pretty conservative. The Supreme Court's pretty conservative right now. We just saw what they did with, the whole abortion issue. And I know that's coming before them. There's a lot of decisions going to be made. So with a conservative court like that, Juan Carlos, and as by your own admittal of what you just said, that chances are it doesn't look very favorable for DACA, then what? What is there any recourse, or are all of you having to go get deported?
There are very few options. If the Supreme Court says that DACA is unconstitutional, basically DACA as it exists now will cease to exist, and we will probably be given 2 to 3 months to figure out what to do with our lives. And Congress will be put in a situation in which they face the job losses of 600,000 DACA recipients, which is not a good thing for our economy or communities. So we will have to force and pressure Congress to pass some sort of permanent legislation.
We're saying 600,000 DACA recipients. So those are not all the Dreamers, but just the DACA recipients that are actually in the system that have to renew every 2 years, that the government knows who you are, where you live, where you work, your blood type, what you had for breakfast. They know everything about you. And so
they have all of our data, where we live.
Yeah, you're easy to find, right?
Where we work. Exactly. They know everything.
I don't care how fast you run, they'll find you, man. So
I always tell people, there's very few things that you can avoid, and one of them is immigration, man. They'll find you. They know how much you make. They know how much you spend. They know everything.
They know where you spend it.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So, so the situation. So, like I said, if in fact, and it's looking, what you're telling me is it looking pretty bleak that the Supreme Court will actually uphold DACA. So if they shoot it down and say it's unconstitutional, then it's up to Congress at the time to pass some new laws?
Congress is the only branch that can pass immigration laws. So it's Congress or nothing, Congress or deportation. Okay.
Now, let me ask you this, Juan Carlos. I know that, and unfortunately, it's becoming a political issue, and it just makes no sense to deport over 600,000 people who have been pretty much raised in this country since childhood, that are contributing to the economy and contributing to the welfare and the well-being of this country, such as you three on this podcast. But I mean, we have a labor shortage as it is. It doesn't make any sense to deport people that are here working and contributing to society. But also, how many Americans actually are in favor of giving DACA recipients some sort of pathway or allowing them to actually stay?
DACA and Dreamers are one of the most popular issues among the American public. 75% of American voters support permanent protections for DACA recipients.
75%.
75% of all U.S. voters.
Okay, so this isn't just 75% of Democrats or Republicans. It's 75% of all voters.
Exactly, and that's 86% of Democrats and over 60% of Republicans also support permanent protections for Dreamers.
Now, our representatives in Congress are supposed to represent the people and their wishes, right? But so right now, the American people wish that DACA recipients be able to stay, but yet Congress is having some heartache with that.
Congress has been playing football with Dreamers for as long as I can remember. So after DACA was ended in 2017, there was an effort to pass some sort of immigration deal that involved a path to citizenship for Dreamers and $25 billion for border security. It got actually 9 Republican votes, which is the most number of Republicans that any immigration deal has ever gotten. But unfortunately, that deal fell apart because President Trump at the last moment decided that he was not going to support the deal that would have given $25 billion for his border wall. So since then, Congress has tried to pass several Dream Acts, if you will, in the House side, and they have passed twice, both in 2019 and 2021. So we've come close, JR. I think we just need both chambers to finally pass it.
Okay, now if it passes through the House, does it need to be ratified, by the Senate as well, or just with the House vote do it?
It needs both chambers. It needs
okay.
The House and the Senate. And unfortunately, the Senate always backs stops, prevents any immigration legislation from passing.
And looking at the political climate and what's going on, I'm going to assume that you want this to happen before a new Congress or new Senate is after the not the midterm elections. I mean, because there's going to be that could shift the balance of what happens in the Senate and Congress.
We do. Think of it this way. We have until January of 2023. We have about 5 to 10 Republican senators who are retiring, including some of the most conservative like Blunt and Toomey and Burr, all very conservative senators, but who actually do support Dreamers. And we know that the new Speaker of the House will most likely be Kevin McCarthy of California. And he is on the record saying that he will pass, quote unquote, no amnesty for any immigrants, including Dreamers. So that's very worrying news, because if there's no movement between now and January, we may be in the wilderness for 2 to 3 years again before we pass any immigration legislation.
First of all, I don't see it as amnesty. That's a whole nother podcast. I mean, this is not amnesty. I mean, well, to me, it's just doing what's humane and what's right. Unfortunately, the political climate as it is, it's kind of muddy in the waters. You got red, you got blue, you got fake news and information. I mean, there's a lot of folks who are just, how should I say this, are not really excited about the changing of America, and the complexion of America is changing. I mean, here in Texas alone, Texas has been a minority majority state since 2004. A lot of people don't realize that. According to the Census Bureau, the last census, the 2020 census, by their own admittal, they undercounted the Hispanic population by close to 5%. They also say by 2022, which is this year, that Hispanics, that Latinos will outnumber non-Hispanic whites. So, I mean, it is a minority majority state, and Latinos are the majority group in this country, and it's continuing to grow. You can stop immigration all you want. You can close down the borders, but because of the numbers and because we're younger and we're childbearing, there's going to be more and more Latinos, and they are not only are they increasing in population due to birth, not immigration, but because of an aging population, whites in this country are actually having fewer children, where Latinos are having just as many as we always had. And that's what's kind of adding to that. So as it is, the whole country, or like I say, the complexion of the country is changing. And there's some people who just can't accept that and are saying anything and doing everything they can to prevent that. Even something like, deporting good folks such as yourselves that have been here for their entire lives and are contributing to society. Juan Carlos, what do you say to those who are going, well, all these undocumented folks, they're just a burden to our economy. I mean, they're costing us money.
Actually, the opposite is true. We're not costing the U.S. money. We're giving the U.S. money. If you look at how many taxes Dreamers pay to the U.S., we're talking about, just from the state of Texas alone, $963 million in state, local, and federal taxes.
I'm sorry, will you repeat that number again?
$963 million in taxes across the board.
Wow.
That is money for our roads and bridges, our libraries, our public schools. That's money that's going directly into our communities from the pockets of Dreamers. Add to that the economic output that we produce for the state. That's $6 billion in GDP annually for the state of Texas. All of the cars we buy, all of the homes we buy, the investments, the consumption of goods, all of that, if we were deported, it would disappear. And we need to prevent that from happening. And that false notion of we take away from the U.S., we take handouts, that is absolutely false.
And you got people like Alberto over there. I mean, he has a business, he employs people, he has a job, he pays not only his personal taxes, he pays business taxes, and is a contributor to our economy and society, providing a service. I mean, Juan Carlos, Alberto, you didn't take a job from anybody. I mean, you created your own job.
Yeah, no, and that's why I see that false narrative. I'm literally creating jobs for people. I'm paying state, local taxes, federal taxes. I mean, we're supporting the economy. Like, I'm paying for people to go to school they're citizens, right? Like, and I think, it's just a false narrative that I think they try to use against us. But in reality, I would say 85% of the Dreamers that I know are either they're professionals, they're creating businesses. I mean, so far the people and we don't even have the option to be not be great, because then what happens if we're not great? Then they take that DACA away from us. We're not even allowed to commit a crime. None of those things, because we're on such a thin line that we have to be great. Everybody that has DACA has to be great. That's the only expectation that they have for us,
Right. Jesus, I mean, from your perspective, what do you say to those that make the argument that, man, with all these undocumented workers, they're taking our jobs, they're taking American jobs? Jesus, did you take some Americans' job away from them?
No, JR. I actually took a job that not a lot of people want to do. People like myself are in jobs and positions that nobody else is available to take. We have a healthcare worker shortage, as we've seen through the COVID-19 pandemic. We need healthcare workers. We need nurses. We need doctors. We need paramedics. And the people that are stepping up to take those jobs are DACA recipients. You know, there's DACA recipients that are doctors out there. There's DACA recipients that are firefighters, EMTs, paramedics. So we're actually just filling in the blanks that other people, citizens, aren't willing to take or don't take. We're filling shortages in places that need staff, that need workers, that need people that are dedicated to this country and their communities. And that's all I see. People can see whatever they want to see, but the truth is, when you actually go down and see what undocumented folks are doing, it's being part of their community, giving back, and taking tough jobs.
Wow. Well, you're definitely on the front lines. You're essential workers, and through whether it be hurricanes or COVID, you're out there literally saving lives. Thank you for that. Juan Carlos, as we look at this, and I'm watching the time right now, but I want to continue this just a little bit longer. What can people do? What can people do as individuals to maybe sway or talk? Can they write letters? Who can they call? What can be done to see what we can do to keep DACA in place, or to create a path to a citizenship?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Dreamers and us, we are in the hands of U.S. voters and in the hands of our legislators, and only Congress can fix our situation. So we need to contact our senators, especially our two senators from Texas, John Cornyn and Ted Cruz, and ask our senators to please vote in favor of permanent protections for Dreamers. And I think the folks will find that Senator Cornyn is very supportive, but we need Senator Cornyn at the table in negotiating an immigration deal. Right now, he's negotiating an immigration deal with Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois and Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina. This is a great opportunity in this atmosphere that we're in, because there are things happening at the border. There are things that Republicans want. There are things that Democrats want. Why not come together and create a compromise, knowing that if we don't address this issue before January of next year, we will be in the wilderness for 2 to 3 years, and the Supreme Court's going to call DACA unconstitutional anyway. So this is a good time to have folks call their senators of Congress, and I'm happy to share that number so that people can call them.
Well, definitely on the podcast notes, we'll give that number, and we'll give some additional information. And Juan Carlos, with your permission, maybe a contact or a link to your email address, so if people have questions or want to find out more of what can happen. Now, when we're talking about DACA, we're talking, would you say, Juan Carlos, 600? How many DACA recipients?
660,000 DACA recipients.
Okay, and how many in the state of Texas?
104,000 DACA recipients in the state of Texas.
Okay. Juan Carlos or anybody, what would your response be to a lot of folks, and I hear it all the time, says, well, they came here illegally. They should have just got in line like everybody else and did it right. Juan Carlos, how long is that line?
It's a very long line, JR. If you're just trying to petition for...
Imaginary too.
Yeah, exactly. It's imaginary. If you're just trying to petition for Tio or Tia or grandpa or someone, the average wait time for someone is 11 to 20 years. I'm in line right now, and I'm not going to hear back for 20 years minimum. And if you're from India or China, and if you're trying to get an employment-based visa, it's 100 years. So the immigration system is completely complicated and messed up, and that's why we need to fix it through legislation, because there is no line. It's imaginary, like Jesus said.
It's an imaginary line. Sometimes it's all boils down to whoever is looking at your paperwork at the time, right?
That's right.
And it's kind of, even though, okay, you're saying up to 20 years on a line coming from Mexico or Latin American countries. Yet for the price of $500,000, if you want to invest in a business in the U.S., you can go ahead and get a visa for you and every member of your family. So, I mean, it's okay to buy your way into the U.S., but if you're a hardworking individual who wants to try to earn a better way of life, I mean, wait in line for 20 years unless you have $500,000 to go ahead and invest in a business. It's almost
I think it's more.
Is it more? I know one time it was 500,000. It's like 900,000. Inflation, inflation.
I was like,
yeah,
how much is it? But I was like, oh yeah, that's a lot. They want the cash up front too.
So if you have plata, if you have money, you can go ahead and come in. But if you don't, wait in line for 20 years.
Yeah.
Just
that or get married.
Getting married. Yeah, some of the well. Anyway, I won't get into that. But let me end on this note, Juan Carlos. When it comes to DACA recipients, and there's a lot of folks that believe that people here undocumented are just a burden on our society. We've talked about that number wise. You're actually making money off of immigrants, and you're just talking about the DACA. I mean, how many folks out there? I mean, come on, the U.S. government knows that. Well, back up. When like 375 people share the same Social Security card, okay, and that FICA and those government taxes get taken out, you're not going to go down and see these guys at H&R Block trying to get a refund. That is money that is being paid when they get that Social Security card from the pulga, from the flea market, and everybody's using the same one. The government knows that. I mean, they're making making lots of money off of DACA, off the undocumented, after folks that are here. And it's just a shame to try to put the blame on they're a burden. They're costing us money. They're here illegally. They shouldn't be here. But the same respect, out of the DACA recipients, Juan Carlos, how many of them are actually, you gave me a figure before the podcast, the percentage of folks that are actually working or in school right now?
Right now, 96% of all Texas Dreamers are working in school or serving in the military. They're not just hanging out.
They're not just hanging around or hanging out at Home Depot looking for a job, huh?
And whether you're undocumented or not, a lot of us can get I-10 numbers because the IRS still has to get there. So a lot of us, even though we don't have socials, we can have I-10 numbers and still pay taxes, even though we're undocumented.
And a lot of people do.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap it up, let's start with Alberto. Alberto, any closing comments or remarks or messages you'd like to do, or maybe a shout out to somebody out there?
Shout out to my family. Shout out to my mom, Claudia, my sister, Maria, and my little brother, Diego. And then as far as DACA, I just wish people will go out and vote locally, federally, everything, just because a lot of people don't realize how much voting matters. So I just encourage people to go out there and vote. If you really want to
get involved, and if you're not registered to vote, right? Get your
register
butts
to vote
down there and register to vote.
Yeah. Yep. That's my closing remark.
And Alberto, thank you for that. And in my opinion, it doesn't matter how you vote. Get registered, get involved with the process, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, a Vegetarian, it doesn't matter. Just get out there and get involved in the process, civic engagement.
Because
it matters. Why are we letting other people determine our own destiny? Why are we letting other people determining what our lives are going to look like? As Latinos, as a community, as the largest population in the state of Texas, we should go out there and vote and help determine our own destiny, our own futures, and letting somebody else do it for us. Well,
one more thing.
There's a lot of
I was going to say, because you even look at the U.S. and where it's heading, right? I mean, you can clearly see that there's a decline in just education overall, like finances, just entrepreneurship all around the world, right? There's different countries taking over different segments. So as an American, it should worry you that, the best talents are no longer in the United States. And that's because you're putting all these obstacles in front of all these great people that are trying to come to your country, that are trying to make it better, they're trying to achieve the American dream. The American people are the ones that are, putting those obstacles in front of those people. So if you really want to continue being the greatest country in the planet, then you have to have the best talents in the world. And that's what America has been great at throughout this whole time, is accepting great talent. And so why stop that now? Like if this system has worked for you for so long, why try to break the system?
I mean, all through American history, we've taken the best from other countries and making them our own.
Exactly.
So what's the difference now? Okay. Jesus, any closing comments or shout outs to anybody?
I'll give some shout outs to the foot workers, those folks that are out there on the ground doing the work, talking to their elected officials, organizations like ABIC, FIEL, Forward.us, United We Dream. Those folks that are in the nonprofit organizations, they're working every single day trying to get knowledge to the people, trying to get people together, rally people together so that we can stand united and stand together and lift our voices up. Also, shout out to to the media, shout out to you for using your platform to share our stories and to bring our stories to the table of ordinary people. I think that's one of the most important tools that we have is our voices. And so shout out to everybody that's out there speaking their heart out and standing up for what's right.
Great. Thank you. Juan Carlos, I'll let you bring us home. What do you got? Any closing comments, shout outs, thank yous?
Yeah, JR. Yes. So actually, just over 2 years ago, I went back to the border for the first time in 20 years. I was driving west on Interstate 10, looking down at the fence dividing Mexico for the U.S. and just being mind boggled by, wow, I'm only separated from Mexico by a few dozen feet, and thinking, if I cross that line, I'm never going to return to my home over here in Texas. So that's a situation. It's a feeling that I don't want anyone else to feel. It's a feeling of wanting to belong, of wanting there to be permanence, to be some certainty, because DACA has been thrown back and forth as a political football between the parties, litigated in the courts. DACA's going to end. DACA's not going to end. So DACA, it can't be forever. We can't be living on like this for the rest of our lives, just 2 years at a time. We have to have certainty that we're going to stay in the country that we know to be home, with the people we love, with the community we've come to know and to serve. And that's a hope. And I know that people sometimes feel that politics and government can be useless around issues like this. But the truth is, like Jesus and Alberto alluded to, the power is within ourselves to do something and to not only call our senators, but vote and to share our stories with the world.
Juan Carlos, thank you. One more time, what can people do to help make a difference?
Absolutely. Call Senators Cornyn and Cruz. Vote for permanent legislation for Dreamers. Go vote this November. I think it's November the 4th. And also contact us if you have any stories to share with your senators. And if you want to get involved with ABIC.
Absolutely. And we have how many Dreamers again? 600 what?
660,000 plus Dreamers across the country.
660,000 plus Dreamers across the country who are in jeopardy of the Supreme Court calling it unconstitutional. And if Congress doesn't act, puts all these men and women in a huge plight of whether they're going to be able to stay or they're going to get deported. Even though 75% of the American people want a pathway for citizenship for you, want you to stay, see the value of having Dreamers here, it seems like our Congress and our elected officials look at it differently, or they're so busy playing politics with each other and trading back and forth. I'll give you this if you give me that. I mean, God, when is it going to stop? When are they going to make a decision what's best for America and not try to make decisions based on their personal politics and how they can get one-upsmanship on each other? It just makes no sense. America first, yes, but in a common sense way. And like I said, we're not here to bash any side, whether Democrat, whether it be Republican, either party. Everybody has their issues. The thing that's not happening is people aren't working together for the betterment of this country, in my opinion. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. This has been the Latino Business Report. I've been your host, J.R. Gonzalez. Juan Carlos, Jesus, Alberto, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Guys, if you like what you hear, go ahead and like us, make your comments on the podcast. We look forward to seeing what you have to say, and we will see you next time.